and roll, dude.
All right, Recliner Sports Reporters, how are we doing? Welcome to a new series that we'll be doing with our NFL reactions. And I have the pleasure of speaking with one of the most brilliant minds and Golden Apple teacher winner. I am just super just honored to even have you just because you're such an awesome guy, Mr. Taylor Ashby. Taylor, how we doing, buddy?
Mac. It's been way too long, my man. It's great, man, being here with y'all with Reclining Sports Reporters, and I mean, been kind of seeing what's been going down with y'all, and I got the itch to start talking a little bit of football with some of the boys again. So it's definitely good to be on. It's good to see you, man.
Dude, that's the greatest part about this stuff. It's like you just said, it's like just talking football with the boys. And like I feel like these are the conversations that you have on the phone with people. And it's like, you know what? This is I know people want to hear it and I know people have their own opinions too. And I think that's the greatest part about this whole entire kind of channel is we want to hear like your disagreements. Like we want like because like that's I think all of sports in general is like you have an opinion and that's like the coolest, most human part of you is that like you can have your opinion, but we don't have to like hate each other. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like when you get
And
like
dude,
yeah.
that's what it is. I mean, it's the core of sports. My team hates you, your team hates me. We're gonna disagree until we throw fisticuffs if that's what it comes down to.
And it's like the only thing that's like totally fine to do it in. You know, like politics, you get people like unfriend you because you voted for someone. Where it's like here, it's like, dude, I'm still your friend. It's just I don't like your team. Like that's the great, and that's the greatest stuff to talk about.
I
Um,
mean, married into a family of Saints fans, so
awesome, buddy. So we have NFL. We just finished up week 4, which is crazy to think that we are already 4 weeks in the NFL season. I feel like it took so long for the NFL to get back, and now it's just like, oh my God, we are into week 5 right now. So, but it is moving fast. It's going great, and there has been a lot of action in NFL. So kind of recapping this week, I think the first game we'll talk about. Um, let's talk about your Bucks and the Saints, man. The Bucks, I I am all been about Baker ever since that kind of move has happened. I think your division, I think it's always been that division. It's really anyone's game unless someone starts to really separate themselves from the pack. And the Bucks have been really consistent this year. But go ahead. What's your vibes on how the Bucks have been playing so far this season? And congrats on the big win against the Saints, man.
it's always nice to go into the dome and take down a division rival. I mean, coming into this year, the NFC South was supposed to be a three-horse race. It's supposed to be Desmond Ritter and the Atlanta Falcons and this one-two punch they got running the ball. Derek Carr coming in, he's finally got all these weapons to throw to. You got Kamara coming back from injury. Olave is going to have a breakout year. And then the Panthers could have been that surprise team with Frank Reich coming in, being able to mold a young quarterback. Question marks with Jonathan Taylor coming back. We don't know what's going on there. And nobody really gave the Bucks the time of day. They
No.
kind of forgot last year that Tom Brady had an off year going through his own personal issues, but the defense was the thing that kept them kind of chugging along and basically allowed them and willed them to win the division again. And now you bring in this kid who's got a chip on his shoulder. He's always been that kid that's had that middle finger F you kind of mentality. I'm going to show you how great I am. And Baker Mayfield, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was skeptical. I mean, the dude was bouncing around the league a little bit. I saw him in action with the Panthers last year, and I was not impressed. Then the dude gets shipped out to Los Angeles, and I mean, all season I was hoping maybe we took a run at Kirk Cousins, maybe made a trade. Honestly, I thought we were going to tank for Caleb. I was ready to tank for him this year, and the dude comes in with this new offensive coordinator from Seattle, and he goes into Minnesota the first week and beats the Vikings. So we're starting to see Baker Mayfield maybe potentially have this new, I guess, revival. You say took us kind of got humbled a little bit on Monday night against the Eagles last week, but we kind of expect that the Eagles and we'll even throw the Niners up there in another tier in the NFC. But the South is definitely open for the Bucks to win. And you're starting to see a little bit of that respect now with the NFL. I mean, the Bucks are off this week, but 2 weeks from now, you got the Creamsicle game up in Tampa that's been flexed to 4:30 against the first place Detroit Lions, which is going to be a great football game between two great defenses.
Yeah, dude. The Lions Bucks game. That's a must watch. must-watch television right there. I'm gonna have to agree with you, man. I think the Bucks are um, really separating themselves now from that pack. That's a huge win against a division rival. The thing about that South Division is, like you said, it's been kind of like open, and last year, having a team make the playoffs without a losing record. But you look at strength of schedules, and like you guys do play some tough opponents, but I think it's like the each one of those teams in there that you can make an argument for, minus the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers are doing too hot, are going to be doing too hot this year. But like you said, the Colts, and even with Anthony Richardson doing well, and now you got Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr has been great for the Saints, but to come out and make a statement win like that against a division rival, that's definitely going to carry a lot of weight. It's definitely gives you a little bit of leg up when you get down closer to weeks 15, 16, 17, when those games like really start to matter. So and again, I've always been on the Baker train. My boys in Cleveland, they hated the way Cleveland kind of did Baker. So I've always been a Baker fan, and like you said, I love the style of play he has. He's really just in your face, and he is who he is. I don't think he's ever like changed personality. He's not fake. Like, this is Baker. Like, you're getting Baker, and he's not a fake guy. Like, he's gonna tell you how it is.
He reminds me of a Brett Favre with legs. Honestly, the guy's a gunslinger, not afraid to go out there and potentially make a big play. I mean, the South, like you say, is going to be open. Minus the Panthers, honestly, you can circle it right now. New Year's Eve at home in Tampa Bay, the Bucks, and I think it's going to come down to the Bucks and the Saints. Honestly, I don't think Desmond Ritter has enough really to will his team, and they can't rely on Bijan
Yep.
Robinson until a coordinator that can use Drake London and Kyle Pitts the right way. If you got him in your fantasy league, drop him now, honestly.
Yeah, dude, I do. I'm so upset about it. Dude, the Falcons, yeah, I don't know. Desmond, I was watching the quarterback, the QB, on the quarterback or whatever on Netflix, and I agree with you. I don't think Desmond Ritter is a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's the guy that's going to take the Falcons to that kind of like the next step. I think right now it's looking like it's the Bucks, like you said, it's the Bucks Saints. That's really gonna kind of what that division is going to come down to.
Mm-hmm.
All right, buddy. Moving right along. Speaking of divisional rivalries, that are not doing well right now. The Bengals starting off losing two already divisional games to the Browns and Ravens, and they really are not looking hot right now. And I I don't know where to go as a Bengals fan, because you're like, do you sit Joe? Do you keep playing him? Jamar Chase has been very candid this year, which I absolutely love. He had a really hot take on after the game,
Open. Give
but
me the ball.
yeah, this Bengals offense, which has been their kind of highlight over the last couple of years, which is weird because their defense is really the one that's kind of got them into the playoff. Their defense was really the one that got them into the Super Bowl. Um, but the Bengals right now are not operating very well. They just got blown out by the Titans, which, no disrespect to the Titans. The Titans played a great game. You just thought the Bengals would have been more competitive. And it's not trending hot right now for the Bengals, and they have a lot to figure out. So I'm curious to see what Zach Taylor can pull out of his hat as they now go to 1-3, which is it's one thing to go 2-2 last year and then 2-3, but starting off the season now, it's like, okay, preseason's over now, boys. Like, these are must-win games now coming up, especially like, even though the Titans might not be a division rival, that could be that this game could implement like a wild card thing later on down, especially if there's like a head-to-head thing going on, if we can't figure out the rest of this season.
You're looking at seeding now. I mean, if you look at the Bengals depth chart right now, their backup quarterback is Jacob Browning, who, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, almost willed Washington to a college football playoff spot a couple years ago in college. There's a, I don't know, do you sit Joe Burrow this week and let him rest when you guys take on the Cardinals? Because when you look at the Bengals schedule, they're getting into the meat of their schedule after they play Arizona. They're home against Seattle. They are on the road against the 49ers, and then they've got a big home game against the Buffalo Bills in November. And then you got a Houston Texans team. And then following that, you got the Ravens. So the next 5 or 6 weeks, we could potentially see the Bengals thinking about next year.
Yeah.
And you're going to a division where I would not be surprised if we see three teams come out of the division. The Ravens are starting to look like a team that is uh, they've got the potential to pull away from the division if Cleveland sits Deshaun Watson another week or two. Pittsburgh, I don't think has the ability to really make things happen. Honestly, Kenny Pickett is a good game manager, but he's relied so much on the Steelers rushing attack, and Najee Harris hasn't really done a lot for them as well this year. And the defense laid an egg against the Texans this week. So you might see maybe two. You see Cleveland and Baltimore come out of that division. If the Bengals can right the ship the next couple of weeks, maybe they jump back in the conversation. But we need to see Joe Burrow playing like a man who's earned $275 million.
Yeah, he is not playing like that right now.
He's playing more like Macaulay Culkin right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I think it's very clear right now, the Ravens and the Browns, although the Ravens went and gave a shellacking to Cleveland in Cleveland, which again, I think it's so weird with that division. It's like because again, I've watched it where the Browns beat us. I think it was like 35-3 last year, and then we go and beat them at the end of the season when we needed to. So that division's always kind of like it can either get really close, really gritty, or it could be a big blowout, or it could be a shootout. It's a tough division, like you said. There's potential for three, but right now I think the Ravens and the Browns are really kind of put in space between them all. The Steelers will, weirdly enough, the Steelers are going to find their way into the talk, and I only say it because last year I think by like week 8 they had said that this will be the first time that Mike Tomlin has been eliminated from the playoffs in week 8, and then it came down to literally the last game of the season. I think they needed like the Bills or someone to lose, and they would have made them their way into the playoffs. So you can't ever really count the Steelers out until week 18, but I do think that you're right. I don't think the Steelers, if they get there, it's gonna just be off pure just their defense really keeping them in these games, and if Pickett can get going. But they have some weapons. I mean, Najee, and I like Pickens. I think he's a great wideout. I love how he plays. But yeah, the Bengals have a lot of work to do, and like you said, it's not going to be any easier. I think you could argue that this could be like a good week to sit Joe and against the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are still a team that went and shocked and beat the Cowboys. So I don't think that they're I mean, it's the NFL, right? So it's like they're playing at the highest level. So, but I do know that after the Cardinals, you got, like you said, Seahawks, Bills, you got more divisional games, you got the Chiefs lining up. These are teams that have actually chips on their shoulder, and you got like, especially like the Bills, they're going to be looking for, like, these are not easy games for the Bengals. And like you said, it could get ugly real fast if they don't start figuring it out and righting this ship. And then now you start to think, okay, well, I guess start looking at next year, which is crazy to say when you just spent that much money on one human being. So, all right, let's move it right along to this was a battle of wills with the Broncos and Bears, two teams that have been really, really struggling, and the game played out exactly how two teams that was a nice, close, good, electric game. The Broncos get it done, but I think if you have any sense of hope, if you're a Bears fan, it's like, okay, well, Justin Fields was kind of starting to look like he is Justin Fields, but then you start to think like, oh, is it just the Broncos? But I don't know. If I'm a Bears fan, I know they are going super aggressive towards tanking and that they need to get rid of Fields, and I know he is not getting any love in Chicago. But what was your thoughts on those two teams and how their season's going in that game?
You see great expectations from both of these teams. A lot of offseason talk about Chicago potentially being a wild card team coming out of the North this year. A lot of people thought that the Minnesota Vikings would take a step back this year. They thought that Green Bay would take a step back with the trade of Aaron Rodgers and moving towards Jordan Love, and maybe they'd be that second team behind the Lions this year. Justin Fields was his groove on. I mean, the first half, the dude had 3 touchdown passes in the first half, in the first quarter. I'm sorry, yeah, in the first half, and everybody was like, "Well, if you need to kind of right the ship, you just play the Denver Broncos." But I mean, Russ and the rest of the Broncos team was able to kind of figure things out. Honestly, I don't know. You can't necessarily blame one or two guys on this. I mean, the Bears defense gave up 17 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, and you guys were up by 2 touchdowns. Fields, 20 to 35 for 335, 4 touchdowns. Khalil Herbert had 100 yards rushing. DJ Moore had 8 for 160 plus and 130 plus and a touchdown. There's only so much that the offense can do. And I mean, if the bright spot, if you're a Bears fan, is you just keep hoping that they lose, the Panthers keep losing, you get that 1-2 punch potentially for the first round. I mean, if you're a Bears fan and the team has done what it's done in the past with trading and stars, you've seen them trade Khalil Mack in the past. You've seen them trade Roquan Smith in the past. Maybe you trade Justin Fields to the Jets, pick up another pick or so because I don't know, maybe we see them if they don't rely on Zach Wilson moving forward. I mean, Zach got the game of his life on Sunday night, but I don't know. Do you just blow things up here if you're the Bears? It's hard to say because, and then you can flip over to the other side. Denver brings in Sean Payton to revive Russell Wilson's tenure here in Denver after a disappointing season. And I mean, thank God they played Chicago because they'd be sitting there maybe talking about trading Russ and trying to figure things out for next year with Sean Payton maybe going and getting his guy, trying to take for a quarterback that he can mold and maybe Caleb Williams. We don't know. I don't. Both these teams are in kind of a similar position where they need to figure things out and figure out what they're going to be doing fast.
Yeah, I like that take about Fields maybe going to New York. I think New York had New York's in a tough spot, man. They went all in on Rodgers, and that's just a terrible way. And like even as a football fan, you didn't want to see it. Like you want to see Aaron Rodgers almost either just struggling all season or like grinding it out and putting the jet and like actually doing it or losing week after week. Like either way is like a fun thing as a fan to watch. But for him to get injured like that, that's not what you want to see. You don't want to see that. Yeah, I mean it's tough to look at stats for Justin Fields and look at all right, I had 335 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and we lost a football game. Like that's really hard to walk away and be like, wow, I did my part, especially when there was so much concern about him not being the guy. For him to come back with a game like that and still not get in the win column, it's tough. I could feel his pain. Um, I don't know what the Bears do moving forward with this one because, like you said, they have a really tough option here where they could go after Caleb Williams. You know, if the season tanks the way they do, because they do have 2 first-round draft picks, so it's like you could get like really, really like you said, you can go get Caleb and a skill player to complement them right off the rip with that, or maybe someone for your defense because clearly your defense isn't doing too well right now. In terms of the Broncos, man, Russ, I thought that the Seahawks, I've said it multiple times on my podcast, I think the Seahawks got the deal of a lifetime getting rid of Russell Wilson. Um, I don't know why Sean Payne hasn't already gone a different direction. Apparently he knows more. If if
Well,
I knew why, I wouldn't be coaching high school football. I'd be coaching. So apparently he knows more than I do. Um, but I just don't think Russell Wilson's the guy for the Broncos. And but how long is that gonna kind of last with Sean Payton? I don't know. I want to give it very much time. Sean Payton looks like a very no nonsense guy, so I would imagine that if Russ doesn't start shipping out or shipping up here the next couple weeks, that we're gonna start going and seeing the backup and then okay, well now it's the same thing. Like what are you doing? What's your draft gonna look like next year? And you know, who are the players that you're gonna go after, or what are the trades that you're gonna go after to get a guy in there that's gonna be able to take the Broncos, because you can't hire a coach like Sean Payton and not give him weapons. I feel like he's gonna go after some stuff. He's pretty in your face type of guy. So, but yeah, man, one of these teams had to get a win. That was, and what a way for it to go out.
Caleb Williams, and then I mean you had the other Caleb Williams going on here. I mean, this could be the real Caleb Williams if both these teams just continue to tank. I mean, in a couple of weeks, you've got the Bears and the Panthers playing each other for, I don't know, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. We don't know.
Another
It's going
barn burner right there.
to be a mess, honestly. It's just two organizations that have really fallen off in the last couple of years. I mean, I think it was about it was not too long ago. We were talking about Cam Newton and the Panthers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it wasn't maybe the double doink a couple of years ago with the Bears, who knows? I don't know. Fate plays a fickle game with football.
It does.
So
It's a funny shaped, dude. I say this all the time to my players. It's a funny shaped ball, and it does funny shaped things. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's like one like it is. It's not a round thing. There's you. The way that games play out is a perfect representation of the way that ball is shaped. It's a funny shaped ball and a funny sport, man. Like there really is no telling like what stuff's gonna kind of pan out. And speaking of that, that's a perfect segue. Dolphins Bills, a game that I thought was going to be a barn burner. Um, and the question really comes now is like, are the Dolphins a bunch of frauds, or was this just an off week, or are the Bills really this good? And again, the Bills were kind of like they lost to the Jets on Monday night, like that was, and Josh Allen played a terrible game with a backup Zach Wilson. And then we all thought, oh wow, they're just not going to, and they have come back and really started tearing it up. But the Dolphins, I thought, were going to be unbeatable this year. I thought their offense was going to be electrifying, and the Bills pretty much shut that up. So that to me was wild. So was that an off day for the Dolphins? Are they frauds? Are the Bills just that good? What's your thoughts on this?
I mean, you heard it all week. Everybody was ready to crown the Miami Dolphins as the de facto AFC champions after putting on a track meet against what we now know is a terrible Broncos defense. You've seen it the last couple of years that Buffalo has always been a tough place for Miami to go and win. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the northeastern air coming off the Atlantic. Maybe it's Bills Mafia just ready to stone cold stunner them with tables and beers. The Dolphins just have never done very well up in Buffalo. The Bills, though, I think are for real. You saw Josh Allen have a day, 21 and 25, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. The defense came to play. We're starting to see if the Bills can institute a running attack as well, that they might be one of the more scarier teams in the AFC. Do I think the Dolphins are still for real? Absolutely. It's really hard to defend on a week by week basis the amount of speed that team has. I mean, half of that team could potentially try to run in the Olympics this next summer. But I don't know if it's going to be a horse race between those two in the AFC East. The Patriots and the Jets have their own problems that they're dealing with. Do I think the Dolphins are frauds? No. But I think that the Buffalo Bills are the best team in that division, if not the best team in the AFC right now.
Yeah, they're definitely playing like it. With the Dolphins is a close second. I think you're right, especially in that division, which I think for decades, we watched the Patriots just kind of dominate. It's good to see the Dolphins and Bills kind of now separating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the Jets might find a silly way, but I always still think of the Jets. But I think you're right. I think that this is just a tough Bills team, and like you said, a couple of these teams have weird things where when they go and play in each other's stadiums, they don't play very well. That is a weird division because we've seen how many times like even the Pats lose to the Dolphins and like late in the season, right? Like it's just one of those. It's like a weird division.
You see, like teams like the Houston, yeah, like people who stay in the AFC, the Houston Texans always go down to Jacksonville and beat the Jaguars. The Jags always go to Indianapolis and beat the Colts. I mean, the Bucks usually go to New Orleans and get pounded by the Saints. It's just one of those weird things in the NFL where some teams just do not travel well and play well in certain venues.
Yeah, and
But I
that's
mean,
definitely one of those divisions.
what I love about, like you said, the Pats have been for the most of our lifetime dominated by the Patriots. I mean, everybody grew up loathing the Patriots and Tom Brady for 20 years. I mean, I had a period of time where I liked the dude for a couple of years. Thank you for the Super Bowl, Tom. But now we're seeing this new rivalry emerge in the AFC East. And I think for the next, if they can stay healthy, 10 years, we're going to see Tua Tagovailoa and Josh Allen going head to head. And it's going to be that next great, maybe Peyton and Brady. Or, I mean, you see, we'll throw Joe in there too, Joe and Josh going at each other. We really don't have those quarterback rivalries in the NFC and the AFC. I mean, I'll throw Justin Herbert in there too. Everybody forgets about the West Coast kid out there. So the AFC has got this next great storyline of quarterbacks that are going to go with each other. And the fact we get to see these two play each other twice every year, just makes for entertaining football.
It really is. It's fun that they're both in the same division. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, there are a lot of great quarterbacks that you just listed there in the AFC. But the NFC, and I think we'll wrap up on this one because we are getting short on time, but the NFC does have primetime Kirk, baby. He finally gets in the win column. I was worried that we might see our first MVP to go 0-17 this year. This dude is putting out ungodly numbers right now. The Vikings finally get it done again against the Panthers, which they should have. But these last couple weeks for Kirk, it's been if I was Kirk, I'd be like, what more could I do to win football games? But the Vikings, they are a dangerous team if they can get their defense kind of situated. But you got Jefferson, Hawkinson, KJ Osborne's been kind of coming out of the woodworks too, finding some work. Can the Vikings figure it out, or is Kirk just going to be putting up a bunch of numbers and that's it?
I don't know. I mean, Kirk was able to will his team to a win. He didn't have the greatest week. He had 140 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But you saw this a lot last year, where Kirk was able to be a game manager and find a way to will the Vikings to win. I mean, the only thing that's different this year is that these one score games are not going their way. They lost by 3 to the Bucs the first week, 6 to a very good Eagles team last week, 4 to a very good Chargers team last week. I'm calling it right now. Here's my trap game of the week for all y'all out there. Minnesota at home against a team that struggled this week, the Kansas City Chiefs, on prime time. Is the Swifty effect going to go 0-3 here, 3-0 here? They haven't met
Oh,
prime time in the dome. Look out for the Vikings to potentially pull off the upset against the Chiefs.
dude, I love that pick. I really love that pick. We're gonna be dropping that one tomorrow too. That's dude, it's prime time Kirk, bro. If there's one person that's gonna end this Taylor Swift taking over football saga, it's gonna be primetime Kirk in the Vikings at home and at +5. Let's go. Hey, always take the home team with plus points. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for watching. Keep a lookout for more of our takes and hot takes on how the season's going. Dude, good catching up, and I'll see you next time, buddy. Hope all is well.
Yep.
And thanks everyone. Remember to keep the change.
Boom.